It was a cold winter. However, there was no snow. The top of Bleak Hill was bathed in moonlight, but no animal was seen outside. Every creature seemed to be deep asleep, although a flicker of light indicated that someone was still up. It was Sophocles, who had totally forgotten the time during his search for wisdom. He had made himself comfortable, and he felt that he was getting close to new insights. There were some questions that had been puzzling him for years, and he was excited by the idea that answers might be found soon, perhaps even right now. "Does the world exist when you are sleeping?" he read aloud. "Is there any evidence? On a more personal scale, do we exist when no one is thinking of us or when no one is calling out our name?" "Sophocles!" A voice broke the silence. Or was it just a thought, a wish that his name would be called? "Sophocles!" It was indeed a real voice. He looked outside and was surprised to see Rogue the fox. They weren't friends. The fact that they both had mice on their menu and that there weren't many mice in the neighborhood was a practical reason for their animosity. And in Rogue's opinion, Sophocles was wise, sure, but not clever and practical. And in Sophocles' opinion, Rogue was smart, but not wise. Thus, Sophocles was surprised to see Rogue, and even more to hear his question. "I need your help," the fox said. What could his problem be? "You need to come with me," Rogue said, "and fast, otherwise it will be too late." Sophocles knew that there was a time for questions and a time for action. Thus, he put out the candles and left his cozy place for the freezing night. In the air, he followed Rogue. They went downhill, where the slope was more overgrown with trees. Sophocles heard a pitiful voice. Who could this be? Then, between the bushes, he discovered where the sound came from. It was Abel, a raccoon he had talked with now and then. He landed next to him. "What is wrong?" he asked, but Abel was in so much pain that he couldn't reply. "Look," Rogue said. Sophocles saw what the problem was. Abel's front leg was trapped in something that Sophocles had never seen before. It was hard and shiny and had sharp teeth. It was between those teeth that Abel's leg was trapped. "This must be made by human beings," was Sophocles' conclusion. "Who cares? We need to get him out of this thing." Rogue's voice sounded desperate. Sophocles approached the trap to have a closer look. "I understand how it works," he said. "That's great," rejoiced Rogue. "But we can't open it." "What? Why not?" "We have the brains to understand the system, but the human beings have got something that we don't have." "Which is?" Rogue asked. "Hands. That's the difference between them and us. I think it is the only difference." They heard a sound. "They are coming," Sophocles said. "We have to get him out." "Sad though it may be," Sophocles replied, "there are times when we have to accept the things we cannot change. I read this recently." "Oh, you and your books," Rogue sighed. "We have to run, or fly." They heard human footsteps and voices getting nearer, and they disappeared between the trees. A little later, they heard a terrible scream. Sophocles knew that he wouldn't meet Abel again. The first thing Sophocles did when he got home was to take a couple of books from the shelf. There had to be a reason why the humans had killed Abel, he thought. It seemed unlikely that they ate raccoons. He read and browsed for hours, but in all those books the answer to this simple question couldn't be found. Dawn was already breaking and daylight was coming in. His eyes were hurting and he was tired. He remembered King Solomon's warning. Of making many books there is no end, and much study wearies the body. How true, he thought. He was just about to close the curtains as he heard his name. "Sophocles!" He looked outside. It was Rogue again. "Do you know why they did it?" the fox asked. "Not yet." "Is it not in any of your books?" "No," Sophocles admitted unwillingly. "Perhaps we should find out in the real world," Rogue suggested. "How?" "They say that there are a lot of humans on the other side of the mountains. Why don't we go there and try to find out why they did it?" "The other side of the mountains? That's very far," Sophocles protested. "Come on, you can fly and I'm a quick walker, and perhaps we find out sooner. There are humans everywhere, more and more." Sophocles hesitated, so Rogue added, "And we will see new places and learn a lot. Is there any reason to stay here all winter?" There were many reasons, Sophocles wanted to say. He had obtained some promising books, there were new candles, it was cozy and safe. However, were those good reasons? So he asked, "When are we going?" "I'll come back when it's dark," Rogue replied, and disappeared. It was too late to say anything more. Sophocles closed the curtains and went to bed. When the cold, short day was over, Sophocles sat in the opening of his nice place, the place where he wanted to stay. But there was Rogue. "Ready?" the fox asked. Although there was no reason to make a risky journey with someone he didn't even like, Sophocles said he was ready. He spread his wings and followed Rogue, who ran downhill. They crossed bushes and woods. When they saw a mouse, they shared it. Finally they saw a river, and far away the mountains. On one peak there was snow. "So we have to go there?" the owl asked. "That will take more than one night." They followed the river for a while. "The river is going on and on," Sophocles complained. "We need to go to the other side. That's the right direction." "I'm not going to swim," Rogue said. "It is way too cold. I would freeze." It occurred to Sophocles that they might not be a very good team. Rogue couldn't even fly. Everything would take much time. On his own, he would have been in the mountains already. Perhaps Rogue was thinking the same. He didn't say a word as they continued their way. "Look!" Sophocles exclaimed. "The solution!" All excited, he fluttered above a tree that had fallen across the river. "You can walk to the other side!" "Let's hope I won't fall," Rogue replied. He took a first, hesitant step on the tree. Carefully, very carefully, Rogue crossed the river. The fallen tree was slippery. The fast-flowing river was whispering across the stones. What a cold sound it was. He wouldn't survive if he were to fall into this icy water. The very thought made him stop. "Come on!" Sophocles cried. The owl was flying in circles above him. "Falling is just another way of flying." "From which book have you stolen that pearl of wisdom?" Rogue growled. "I don't remember." Rogue had become so angry by Sophocles' remark that he had forgotten his fear, and now he was on the other side of the river. They continued their way, this time uphill. It was not like home. The landscape was different. There were other trees, different stones. "We need a place to stay during the day," Rogue said. He looked at the sky. "It will be getting light soon." Sophocles' perfect place would be a hole in the tree. A hole under the ground was most welcome for Rogue. They saw nothing of the kind. What they did see were more and more white spots, and after a while Rogue was walking in snow. "How beautiful!" Sophocles was carried away by the view of the white world. "Easy for you to say, you don't have to walk in it," Rogue replied. Sophocles didn't seem to hear him. He whispered, "I wonder if the snow loves the trees and fields, that it kisses them so gently, and then it covers them up snug, with a white quilt, and perhaps it says, 'Go to sleep, darlings, till the summer comes again.' All I know is that the snow doesn't love my feet. I never heard such rubbish." "Rubbish?" Sophocles was truly shocked. "It's from Alice in Wonderland." Rogue sat down. "We are in reality land now. It is almost day, we have no place to hide, and with this snow I don't know how we are supposed to find one single mouse, or even just a dry berry." "Gentlemen, gentlemen." Suddenly there was a voice. "No arguing. There is always a solution." They had been so focused on their problems that they had forgotten everything around them. They saw something that they had never seen before. The creature was about their size but didn't have 4 paws, and wings, not a single one. This, what was it? Looked like a human being, but it was too small to be one. The creature saw their confusion and said, No worries about food. But the two of you are a rather unusual couple. What are you doing together?" Sitting on a branch, Sophocles replied,
"We want to solve a mystery."
"We want to know why humans kill raccoons," Rogue added. "Raccoons?" the creature repeated. "I have no idea. Humans kill a lot without needing a specific reason."
"Really?"
Sophocles was worried. Could it be that they had made the entire trip in vain? Was there no answer to their question? "Really," was the short answer. "But it will be light soon. I don't like being outside then. If you like, you can accompany me. I have some food at home." Rogue was suspicious. "Are you a gnome?" "No, that's a common mistake. I am Dara and I am dwarf. Gnomes are much smaller than me." "You look like a human." Rogue didn't feel much like going to her place. "I am not." Dala's voice sounded indignant. "The humans caused a lot of sorrow to me," she continued in a softer tone. "If you want to eat something, follow me. If you prefer to stay outside in the daylight, stay here." They followed her, Rogue walking next to her in the snow, Sophocles flying above them, making circles because he was much faster. Dara stopped next to an old, thick tree. "Wait a moment," she said, and then Sophocles and Rogue saw a miracle. Dara opened the tree. They had no idea what a door was. To them it was like Dara took out a part of the tree, and they had no idea what a staircase was. But they saw that they could go down. "Go ahead," she said. "After you. I have to close the door behind us." For Rogue, this wasn't difficult, but Sophocles had to hop from step to step. They heard Dara close the door behind them. It was totally dark, and even Sophocles didn't see clearly. It occurred to him that if Dara had closed the tree from outside, they were trapped now. Dara didn't lock them in, though. She brought them to a world of miracles. Sophocles knew that he was something different in the world of animals. His place in the hollow tree was more than just a hole. But Dara seemed to live in a different universe. In her hole under the ground she had several rooms. In one of them there were delicious smells. Something big, round and dark radiated heat. How lovely in winter! "It is a stove," Dara explained. "A human invention. They do have their ideas, I must admit. On the stove were pots, and that was where the smells came from." "Would you like to eat something?" Dara offered. A bit later, Sophocles and Rogue were having their first hot meal ever. Rogue sniffed. "No rabbit or mouse?" "Dwarfs don't eat meat."
"But how do you get enough proteins then?"
Sophocles asked. Dara smiled. "If we would have had meat only, would you have asked how I get enough vitamins? Anyway, the mix of nuts and mushrooms offers enough proteins." They ate. Who could have thought that the mushrooms, berries and nuts they knew so well could have this wonderful taste? Dara had added dried herbs. The flavors reminded them of the sunny summer days when they had been picked. "It is time to sleep," Dara announced. She brought them to another room. A fire spread a pleasant warmth and gave everything a golden shine. Roots that had pierced through the ceiling and walls cast long shadows that moved in the light of the flames. Rogue stretched out near the fire. "It is like summer," he said. "I could stay here forever." Sophocles found a place on a big root. Dara took off her large cover and swapped it for a pink bonnet. Then she went to a very strange object. She was too sleepy to explain what a bed was. "Sleep well," she said. "Good morning," Rogue and Sophocles replied. Then it was quiet. Only the wood in the fire crackled now and then. Every time when the unusual sound woke up Sophocles, he opened an eye, and every time he was surprised to see the place where he found himself. At breakfast, Dara explained that they would have to cross the high mountains. That is, if you really want to see humans and to find out why they do what they do. My advice is to stay here. Even the few in our neighborhood cause enough trouble, she said. Sophocles couldn't help but overhear a bitter tone in her voice.
Did they do something to you?
he asked. Dara told them about the place where she and her husband used to live, far away, long ago, and about the humans who had come to cut the trees, including the oak under which they had lived. I was out. I had been searching for berries in the woods. When I went home, I saw them cutting down our tree. There was nothing I could do. I just hoped that Raznok would be out just like me. But then I saw him coming out. He tried to run, but the humans saw him too. One of them hit him with his axe. They left him there, and later that night I dug a grave for him. Rogue and Sophocles didn't know what to say. It was time to go. They climbed the stairs and got back in the open air. After a day near the stove, the cold was even more biting. Now they understood Dara's clothes. More so when it started to snow. Here you have to go up, Dara said. Follow this valley. When you are at the end, you climb until you reach the mountain ridge, or in your case, Sophocles, you fly. On the other side, you simply go down and you will arrive in the world of the humans, if that is what you want. They understood this was the moment to decide, go on or go home. But after thinking of Abel and the question why he had been killed, Rogue said firmly, yes, that is what we want. Sophocles nodded and thought to himself, when it gets too rough, I can always fly home within a night or two. They thanked Dara many times for her hospitality, and finally said farewell. In the beginning, the slope went up gently, but gradually it became more and more steep. The wood got denser. To Sophocles, it became harder to float above Rogue. The snow is so deep, Rogue complained. My paws are half in it.
I need a rest,
Sophocles replied, and landed on a branch. Rogue sat down at the foot of the tree.
We won't get very far like this. We just started and we already have to rest,
remarked Sophocles. There wasn't much to say on this, and for a while they sat and rested. Just when Rogue wanted to propose to continue, they heard steps. Between the trees, a group of 5 ibex appeared. They stood still when they saw the owl and the fox. "What are you doing here?" asked the one who had been walking ahead of the group. His horns weren't far from Rogue's nose. Sophocles explained that they wanted to go to the other side of the mountains.
"But it is not easy,"
he said. "If you are faced with a mountain, you have several options," the second ibex replied. "You can fly over it," the third animal continued. "I can't," Rogue objected. "You can turn around and go back the way you came," the fourth one suggested.
"We didn't come from so far to go back,"
Sophocles replied. "Or you might go around it," the last ibex said. "Avoiding the problem might take a lifetime," Rogue answered. "Well then," the first ibex said, "you can climb it and cross to the other side. How? You're lucky. You can follow us. In our footsteps it will be easier for you, Fox. The owl can fly to the top and wait for us. You think you can make that?" "Sure," Rogue said. "It is not the mountain that we conquer, but just ourselves." They left. A squirrel that had been listening unnoticed in a tree giggled. "A lot of wisdom," it said with a smile. "But they forget one thing. What goes up must come down. We will see on which side of the mountain they land." Sophocles sailed away in the dark sky. Rogue followed the ibex. He was the last one of the group and stepped in the footprints of the 5 animals. The higher they went, the more careful they became. They seemed to think about every move they made. True, the height was impressive, even frightening, but one would say that they had seen mountains, slopes and ravines all their life, Rogue thought. When they had a very steep slope on their left side, he was glad that he could follow the ibex, but a bit later he felt he didn't need them anymore. In a wood he overtook them. "Thank you," he said. "I think I will manage from here." "The hardest part has yet to come," the first ibex said. "I don't need to be sheltered from dangers," Rogue replied. "I want to be fearless in facing them." He started to climb up between the trees. "Sophocles will be surprised when he sees me arriving first, and all by myself," Rogue said to himself. After some time he realized that this would take a while. The snow was very deep now that he couldn't follow the steps of the ibex anymore. Would it be wise to go back and join them again? No, he thought. One cannot answer for his courage when he has never been in danger. At that very moment his left rear paw slipped and he lost his balance. He rolled downward. He tried to get back on his feet, but everything went too quickly. Snow started to collect around him, and a few moments later he couldn't see anything anymore. He rolled downhill in a big ball of snow. The snow was in his eyes, his ears, and his nose. He couldn't breathe anymore. Rolling over and over, bumping over stones, he wondered if he had made the long trip just to die inside a snowball. But then he felt a heavy shock. The rolling had stopped, and he could feel the wind around his head. He lay down, dizzy. At the top of the mountain, Sophocles was surprised indeed. Not because he saw Rogue arrive alone, but because he saw the ibex arrive without him. He found Rogue by following the track of the snowball. "What happened?" he asked. "To make a long story short, I thought I could do it on my own. I couldn't, but I survived," the fox replied. They left, and this time Rogue carefully followed the footprints of the ibex. They arrived at the top of the mountain towards dawn and saw that there were more mountains, even higher than this one. "What a view," Rogue sighed.
"We have no time to enjoy it," Sophocles said. "It is getting light. We need a safe place."
"So we only reached the top to go down again?"
"Indeed, that is life."
"Easy for you to say," was Rogue's opinion. "You can fly, and you can always enjoy views when you feel like it." Sophocles only said, "Let's go." They didn't notice that a dark spot had appeared in the sky. When they continued on their way, the spot followed them. If they would have looked up, they would have seen that the spot was growing bigger as it descended. But they didn't pay attention to the brightening sky until Sophocles saw movement from the corner of his eye. He couldn't believe what he saw. It was a bird. Not just a bird, but an enormous creature, maybe 10 times bigger than him. This could be an eagle, the species he had read so much about. If he remembered correctly, those birds loved meat and were strong enough to catch rather big animals, as big as a fox even. However, there was no time to reflect on scientific books now, as the eagle was diving at full speed.
"Rogue!"
Sophocles screamed.
"Watch out! Above you!"
Rogue looked up, squeaked, and started to run. The eagle screamed with anger. "Mind your own business," he yelled at Sophocles.
"I did,"
Sophocles objected. The eagle didn't listen, but flew after Rogue. The poor fox saw that the eagle was much faster and doubled his speed. Sophocles was circling above the event and saw that no matter what Rogue did, it was in vain.
"It is a mistake to think that moving fast is the same as actually going somewhere," he mumbled.
Rogue had come to the same conclusion. He slowed down his pace, waited till the eagle was near him, and then suddenly moved to the left. When he ran off, he heard the claws of the eagle scratching over the snow.
"Quick!"
Sophocles screamed.
"Behind that stone there are some bushes. Hide there!"
Rogue ran in the direction of a huge grey stone. Behind it there were indeed some bushes, but would they provide shelter from the eagle? They were so tiny. The eagle was above him when he reached the bushes. The thin branches could hardly stop the hungry bird of prey, but at least they slowed it down. The eagle tried to get between the bushes to grab Rogue, but the fox could escape at the last moment every time. Finally, the enormous bird stopped its fruitless efforts and took off with a disappointed scream. Sophocles landed in the bushes.
"Still want to enjoy the view?"
he asked. "I think I will give it a miss," Rogue replied. "I'm so tired I can fall asleep right here."
"We need a better place,"
Sophocles said, but Rogue stretched out and fell into a deep sleep. At the foot of the hills where they arrived the next night, there was a new world. They saw the presence of humans everywhere. They didn't know that the things they saw were called houses and roads, or that where there were houses huddled together, it was called a village by the humans. However, they found it all fascinating. It scared them, but they still wanted to explore the world of the humans. And this world had some advantages. Roads were easy to walk for Rogue. Barns were full of mice. They crossed several villages, and after some days they arrived in a town. They found shelter in a park. It was there, when the evening fell, that they found out why Abel the raccoon had been killed. People were walking in the park, and Rogue observed them from the bushes where he was hiding. Sophocles sat above him in a tree. They watched the people, and when the last ones had left the park, Sophocles left his branch and landed near Rogue.
Did you see?
He screamed. Yes, Rogue was shocked as well.
They have tails of raccoons around their neck. Why?
Sophocles couldn't believe it. At last he knew why humans killed raccoons. For their tails. But this knowledge just led to a new question. Why did humans wear parts of raccoons around their neck? He asked Rogue,
"Are you thinking the same as me?"
"Yes," the fox replied. "I don't want to stay here." When the humans had gone to bed and everything was quiet, Sophocles and Rogue left town. They didn't have a plan, but just kept going. During the day, they hid in woods or parks, and during the night, they crossed fields and villages. Quite often, the landscapes were lovely, but every time when they saw how animals were treated, they decided to move on. They found out that humans could kill even from a distance. With just a bang, they could fell a deer or rabbit that was running far away. "It would be handy if we could do the same with mice," Rogue commented.
"I don't know. If we could, others could do the same,"
Sophocles replied.
"We would all kill each other from a distance. It might be better to work hard for our food and even to be hungry now and then."
And hungry they were. In the snow-covered forest and fields there wasn't much to find. Since they were strangers, they didn't have their own territory as they had at home, where they knew every inch, and where they knew where to find food. One night Sophocles had flown away far from Rogue. When he returned, he saw the fox crossing a field. He noticed a movement between the trees that surrounded the field, and decided to have a look. And then he discovered the oddest thing he had seen during the entire trip. 2 humans were sitting in a tree. Clumsy as humans were, they couldn't simply sit on a branch, but they had made one of their constructions. Without making any noise, Sophocles landed in a neighboring tree to observe the humans better. He saw that the one who was sitting on the right pointed something thin and long in the direction of the field. What could be the reason for doing so? Who could ever understand the humans? On the field, he could see Rogue. And then he understood. The human was going to kill Rogue from a distance. There was only one thing he could do. Sophocles took off from his branch and dived down, right into the face of the human with the object that was pointing in Rogue's direction. There was a lot of noise. The human screamed, and a sound like the thunder echoed between the trees. Far away on the field, Rogue looked up and ran away. Sophocles landed on a branch above the 2 men. "What was that?" the one who tried to kill Rogue asked with a trembling voice.
"No idea,"
the other one answered.
"but the fox has gone."
"It must have been a forest ghost," the first one said. Sophocles did his best not to giggle. The other man said that this was nonsense, but he said, "Let's go home." It was funny to see the humans climb out of the tree. They were so clumsy. When they walked away, Sophocles left the spot as well to join Rogue, who had hid himself in the woods. They continued on their way. After a while, Rogue noticed something different in the air. He sniffed and said, "Can you smell it too? It is strange. I've never smelled something like this."
"My nose is not as good as yours,"
Sophocles replied.
"What is it?"
"I don't know. Like I said, it's something totally new." Then Sophocles noticed a change too. It was not a smell, but it was wind. It was different from what he had ever felt before. This wind was gusty and humid, and it brought a powerful, rhythmic sound.
"Do you hear that?"
he asked.
"It is really odd."
"My ears are not as good as yours," Rogue answered.
We are all equal in the fact that we are all different, Sophocles observed.
They were curious. Rogue continued at a trot, and Sophocles' wing beats became more powerful. They moved through a pine tree wood that protected them from the freshening wind. When the wood ended, they felt the full breeze that brought a salty smell. "What is this?" Rogue screamed and stopped walking. Sophocles landed at his side.
"I don't know,"
he admitted. In front of them there was what seemed to be a field with just sand. And behind that there was water. Only water. It was moving in the wind, and where it hit land, it made a deep sound.
"I have read about this,"
Sophocles said. Rogue sighed. I might have guessed.
"Don't be difficult. It is the sea."
"Is there no end to it?"
"Yes, there is, but it is different there,"
Sophocles explained.
"On the other side of the sea there are animals and birds we have never seen."
Rogue wondered. Could the humans be different there as well?
"They are, but I don't know if they live in peace with us,"
Sophocles replied. "Could we find out?"
"I'd like to," the owl admitted, "but I don't know how we could get to the other side. It is too far to swim or to fly."
It was getting light, and the fox and the owl withdrew between the pine trees. Rogue found a spot between the bushes, and Sophocles made himself comfortable on a branch. At sunset, they went back to the sea. There was not much wind anymore, and the water was calm. It had moved more land inwards, though. "Look!" Rogue exclaimed. "There are humans, and they are going into the water." But they didn't go into the water themselves. Once again, they used something they made.
"Unbelievable,"
Sophocles commented.
"They are able to float."
"What is it they are in?" Rogue wanted to know. Sophocles said he didn't know, and added,
"It is made of wood, and we need one too, that is, if we want to go to the other side."
All humans had disappeared. One of the wooden constructions had remained, and was bobbing gently in the water, close to the beach. They didn't need any words, but hurried together down to the waterline at the same moment. Sophocles landed on the boat and pointed to a rope.
"Only this thing is holding us back from floating away," he said.
"Shall I bite through it?" Rogue suggested. He didn't wait for an answer, but started to gnaw. Sophocles noticed the sound and looked up. He saw two humans getting nearer.
"Quick,"
he said.
"Humans!"
"Done!" Rogue jumped on board. They saw the humans getting closer. "You can fly," Rogue said, "but they can catch me." But then the boat started to drift away. The humans were running now, and even went into the water up to their knees. They were shouting. "They are so close." Rogue's voice trembled. "And they are so angry." Sophocles reassured him.
"They can't get us anymore."
Everywhere around them there was water. The boat rolled a bit on the low waves. "Where are we going?" Rogue wanted to know.
"Hopefully to a better place,"
Sophocles replied. A little later, they couldn't see land anymore.